Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about adopting new technology. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, should one stick to the basic concepts and slowly introduce new technologies when they seem to be winning in the developer space? Well, that much, it sort of depends, and this is sort of well, in my opinion, at the very least, this is the main difference between a senior level software developer, like a true master, and practically everybody else in the IT space, which is that the the adoption of technology is it is a way for you to achieve some goal. Now the problem here is that this is similar to, it's actually similar to politics or economics or any type of social environment where you need to make a decision or you need to make an investment. Now, how do you do that? Well, if you are a master of the stock market or a master of politics or whatever, or a master like in journalism, etc., etc., you know enough about the topic to be able to make informed decisions on what you should be doing. I mean, that goes for anything, basically. Same thing for software. But on the other hand, if you are ignorant or not actually like all that good, or you are not so experienced, etc., etc., you don't really know how to make these informed decisions. And the problem is that that can have a lot of consequences for when you adopt something. Because what usually happens, which is the thing that is strikingly common, like it's something that I think most people can relate to who follow how things go in the world, is that there are enormous amounts of groups of people. I would say it's the norm, and that sort of, in my opinion, testifies to the sickness that our society has been infected with. There are enormous amounts of companies, groups, etc., etc., who will sell you what things, like whatever it might be, and a lot of them don't necessarily even themselves know what you actually want. Like their focus is not to give you a good investment or give you like a good tech or like something to go for. They are just interested in furthering their agenda, and if that comes at your expense, some might care about that, but most don't. And in technology, you have a similar sort of problem, if that makes sense, because when your software developers in a specific company, when they go and they start adding new things to the tech stack, you can very much look at that as an investment, because the code doesn't go away when the person realizes that this may not have been a good idea, or when they leave the company, or it might be that they don't actually have the necessary knowledge to understand. I mean, they might not even be looking at the outcome. How many times? I don't know how many times I've been in situations where software developers, they will add different new things to a tech stack and never really reflect on how that has affected the work that is being done. But on the other hand, you have people who are on the other extreme, where like no new concept is a good idea, and like they write things from scratch all the time, or they reinvent things, etc., etc. And that is not necessarily a good thing either. It's sort of, because the reality is, guys, that there are, I mean, it's like buying anything, if that makes sense. Some products are shit and some products are good, but which one's which, and it's like what to buy, what not to buy, etc., etc. The only thing I can give you here is that the responsibility on making a good investment in tech, as in with anything, lies with you, the person who's going to do the thing. And unfortunately, as I like to say, if you don't know any better, you can only go with what others are telling you. And here comes the key moment for you. If you do that poorly, if you don't understand how to be reasonably sure what a good investment looks like in terms of technology or whatever versus something else, if you get swept up with, which is the thing that happens, when you get swept up by hype, it is over for you. Then you are doing the thing that the vast majority of people do. This is why the world looks like it does, because they make a decision on emotion, not wisdom, logic, reason, all of these sorts of things, right? That's not what's happening. It is based on, they usually do it based on emotions and prejudices, etc., etc. And with technology, it's exactly the same thing. And you have no idea how common this is, guys. I have talked with people. It wasn't all that long ago. I was talking to this guy. At first, like, my first response to him was because he had an idea for, like, we had a fairly severe problem within the company, and he had an idea that at first glance sort of sounded really like, I thought to myself, okay, this is a guy who he's a philosopher, software developer, because it's, and this is my prejudice, it is so common that the people who portray themselves as being really, really good or being really, really informed, they're really just, they are good, but they still have these value systems that sort of hurt your they hurt the tech stack or the company long term. Because they usually get so good that they don't see that over-engineering things and creating more complicated problems is a different sort of problem, rather than, you know, not being so good and not using the latest and the greatest tools, right? And so he made a suggestion and sort of changed my mind, and because there was some validity to his idea. But then I asked him, in this case it was about Kafka and using topics as an event sourcing, basically, as opposed to something else. For this specific case, I'm not going to go through the exact reason why he suggested it. My first thought was, okay, because it's not that common that you would use event sourcing at all. It's not. The use case for event sourcing is fairly, in my opinion, specific, but there are religious fanatics. I've met more than one that really believe in this thing, but then he made a really good case for it, and I thought, oh, maybe he's actually really, really smart. And then I turned to him, and then I thought about it a little bit, and I realized that actually there is a case here for a just regular relational database. And I asked him, oh, have you considered using a relational database? And his response was very simply that, no, never use relational databases. And I go, why? Because relational databases are bad. Okay, that is sort of like saying that there's no use case for a spork, or the reverse, knife and forks are useless because you have a spork. And that mentality is exactly what you should be fighting, because this is the root as to why I believe how you can fix this mentality in yourself, and that is, you have to truly understand the problem that you are solving. If you don't understand the problem that you are solving, then you do not know what the most appropriate tool that you need in order to solve that problem is. Because when you truly understand what the most effective solution would be, or like what your problem is, you will find it's, in my opinion, it is very similar to, you know, one of those children's toys when you try to fit one of the shapes into the right slot. That is what you're going for. You have this slot that is shaped in a certain way. Now your job is to try to find the piece or your tool that most appropriately fits that thing, and you're going to have a range of options available to you, and this is why you have to educate yourself. That's why you have to inform yourself, because the more that you know, the more likely you are to find the appropriate solution. But you have to make that investment, so that in some cases going back to basics and doing something very simple is the way to go, or maybe writing your own tool for a specific thing. But in some cases you have other tools that are already made that will help you get to wherever you need to go, like fit the thing into the slot, right? It very much depends on making an informed decision here. So what I want you to take away from this is that there is no right or wrong answer saying that you should stick with basic concepts versus using like new tech or using hyped technologies, because there are technologies that are hyped, but that they are also very useful. They actually make the difference. And then you have hyped technologies that are completely like a complete waste of time to invest in, because they're not actually going to, it's a fad. It's something, or it's not even about it being a fad. It doesn't have to be a fad, because even a fad could be useful if it's the right type of thing, right? But it comes down to understanding that popularity does not mean good. There are tons of examples, guys, where you as I said, guys, there are entire industries that are oriented around detaching your reasonable thinking, rational thinking, and scooping up people who don't use reason and logic. They are emotional beings. In case you didn't consider, like, think about pyramid schemes, think about cults, think about all of this sort of stuff, and in a lot of cases politics as well. It's the same game, guys. They are trying to make you stop thinking about what's actually going on and be swept away by pageantry, charisma, presentation, all these fluffy emotional things that you can manipulate within people. But if you are an informed, rationally thinking person, that does not work usually. But on the other hand, if you're so conservative that you never try anything new, then you have a different sort of problem. Then you're sort of like putting yourself in your own box, and you're saying it's the reverse. It's an emotional thing again. As I was saying with this guy I was talking to, he has an emotional reason for not considering any options, which is the exact opposite. These sorts of extreme people, these are, in my opinion, people who make the worst decisions in the world. And they are unfortunately the norm. And if you want to combat that tendency that you have, because everybody has that emotional part, me included, but if you want to fight that, you need to educate yourself, and you need to understand how to, when you're not so sure which way to go, how do you understand your problem well enough to understand how to figure out, based on objective information, which of these solutions seem to be the best, and make good informed decisions. Have a great day.